Hey everyone, this is HFY Galactic Empire Fall. Stories forged by humans, not machines. Because HFY is our story. I'm Orion Thane. Subscribe and witness what comes next. The monitor delay line moved twice. Lena saw it in the lower corner of the main cartography display. A thin white bar sweeping left to right as the overnight sync finished. It reached the edge, vanished, then appeared again and crossed the screen a second time. Perfectly level, as if the system had changed its mind and decided to confirm its own work. Her hand stayed on the desk. For a few seconds, she watched the empty reflection in the glass panel. Behind her, the room held its usual shapes. 3 map tables, 2 chairs, a stack of survey printouts clipped under a metal weight, the narrow task light over her station, the ceramic bowl where people dropped loose fasteners when they found them in the wrong place. 1 screw in it, dark with thumb oil. The delay line finished. No alert followed. Lena picked up the stylus, tapped the corner of the display, and called up the log stream. She did not sit back. She read with her face close to the screen, 1 finger resting along the stylus barrel, not moving except when a line passed too quickly and she dragged it back. At the far end of the room, Oren was on the floor with the maintenance panel open beneath the spectral relay rack. He had 1 knee down, 1 foot planted, driver in hand. He did not look up when Lena said, "The sync ran twice." The driver turned once inside the housing. "Both full passes?" "Yes." "Checksum." "Still loading." He tightened 1 connection, paused, then loosened it again by a fraction. His movements were exact and slow enough to be mistaken for hesitation by anyone who did not know him. Lena knew better. He never moved quickly when the system was quiet. Fast hands were for fires, breaches, decompression seals. Quiet systems asked for less confidence. The checksum resolved in green. Lena leaned back by a centimeter, no more. No packet loss. Oren slid the panel tray toward himself, set the driver across it, and finally stood. He brushed 2 fingers along his sleeve where dust from the floor seam had marked the fabric. The mark stayed. He walked to her station, stopping once to straighten the left chair by the map table without seeming to notice he had done it. Lena shifted half a step to make room. He did not thank her. He bent toward the screen. The overnight cartographic overlay filled the wall display in muted color. Transit channels glowed in pale blue. Gravity wells marked themselves with clean rings. Survey fragments from remote arrays stitched into the dark. Near the lower center, on an old familiar arm of local space, the Sol system sat quiet and ordinary, coded under archive restrictions and legacy observation protocols no one had revised in generations. Oren looked first at the log. Then he looked at the map. His eyes stopped. Lena did not ask him what he saw. She was already seeing it. The marker around Sol had changed. Not the system itself. Not the star classification. Not the planetary record. Not the archive permissions. The alteration sat above those layers, newly written in the access field reserved for active caution flags. It was a simple border around the system, amber at the edges and white at the center, with a line of text so short it looked unfinished. "Do not enter." Neither of them spoke for several seconds. The task light hummed overhead. Somewhere in ventilation, a bearing clicked and went quiet again. Lena placed the stylus down beside the clipped printouts. She lined it parallel to the paper edge. Then she zoomed in on Sol. Earth rotated under cloud cover in the inset window, blue and white and indifferent. Mars, rust red. Lunar infrastructure tags. Orbital debris shells. Deep archive note. Human cradle world. Observation only. Treaty null. Population status uncertain. The new caution flag sat across the whole system like a hand placed flat over a document. Oren reached past her and opened the source trace. "Internal or relay?" Lena asked. He scanned down the chain. "Relay. From who?" Still pulling route ancestry. Lena moved to the side console and began a manual comparison against the previous night's map state. Her fingers worked the keys without force. She disliked touch interfaces for serious work. Glass pretended to be neutral. Keys admitted they had been pressed. The room brightened as the wall display split into parallel versions. Yesterday's map on the left. Today's on the right. The difference was almost insulting in its neatness. Nothing else had changed. Not one trade lane. Not one military exclusion ring. Not one navigation buoy or drifting hazard marker. 43,000 sectors of updated data, and only Sol had been touched. Oren scrolled through the relay route in silence. Lena listened to the small sounds that meant he had found something worth following. The stop in his breathing, the single tap of his nail against the screen, the way he leaned less when his attention sharpened. She printed the diff. Paper fed from a side slot in a narrow strip, warm and slightly curled. She tore it cleanly at the edge, smoothed it with her palm, and placed it beside the stylus. The printed line looked almost absurd. Sector, Local Cluster 7A. System, Sol. Revision, Access Caution applied. Authorization, verified. Text string, do not enter. Verified. Lena touched that word with one finger, then removed her hand. Verified by what? She asked. By something that knew the old corridor keys. Oren kept reading. 3 relay jumps upstream. No visible origin stamp. Keys are legitimate. Copied. Not unless someone copied a dead government. Lena glanced at Earth again. Cartography stations collected old things. Borders that no longer mattered. Names no one used. Extinct language tags kept alive in database bones because deleting them sometimes broke the systems built on top of them. Human records were like that more than most. Too much of early interstellar navigation had used Terran standards. Even species that disliked the old human polities still used their math. She picked up the printout and read it again, as if paper might reveal a tone that the screen had hidden. Do not enter. Not quarantine. Not military closure. Not memorial preserve. Not biosphere risk. No authority header. No legal code. Just a sentence. People don't write flags like that, Lena said. Oren looked at the relay ancestry. Humans did. She said nothing. He was right. Or partly right. There were records of early Terran navigation bulletins written in blunt plain language. Less elegant than concordant standards. Easier to understand under stress. A damaged jump lane is unstable became, don't take this lane. A contamination advisory became, do not touch surface water. This looked like that. Too plain. Too direct. Written for someone who would rather be obeyed than admired. Lena folded the printout once, then flattened it again immediately when she noticed the crease. Can you confirm whether the flag propagated outward or originated in the map core? Already checking. Not already. Check again. He did not react to the correction. He opened a deeper trace and keyed in a maintenance override with 2 hands. His right thumb lingered over the last input for half a second before he entered it. The system accepted. Lena walked to the kettle alcove, filled it from the wall tap, and set on the heater. The metal base clicked under the pot. She waited for the contact light to turn amber, then remained there with one hand on the counter, looking not at the kettle, but at the reflection of the map behind her in the brushed steel splash panel. The Sol marker glowed there too, reversed and faint. When she returned, Oren had pulled up archival format comparisons. Old human caution tags, colonial survey shorthand, relay language compression from the expansion era. The wall filled with examples, most of them dull, some damaged, a few carrying the bluntness she now could not stop seeing in the new warning. Do not approach. Do not break seal. Do not wake occupants. None were exact. Closest match? Lena asked. Late Terran emergency cartography. Civilian side. He enlarged one fractured record and set them side by side. Same brevity. Same command structure. But this one was written yesterday. The kettle began to warm. A faint ticking came from the metal as its base adjusted to heat. Lena sat for the first time, though only on the edge of the chair. She opened the station charter and the reporting ladder. Protocol said unexpected access changes in legacy sectors were to be forwarded to regional oversight, then to archive arbitration if the source keys proved historical. Protocol assumed a great deal about the universe, mostly that people still used it. Regional oversight was 22 hours away by confirmed packet. Archive arbitration would answer in 3 days if they answered at all. Meanwhile, Every civilian route planner pulling from ILEX would receive the update within the hour. She imagined freighter crews glancing at charts over meal trays. Couriers mid-burn. Pilgrims following old routes for reasons not recognized by any government. They would see the warning and do what everyone did when confronted with a gap in information. Some would avoid it. Some would ask questions. Some would decide the fastest way to become important was to go where the map told them not to go. Oren closed one window and opened a traffic shell around Seoul. Lena looked up. There shouldn't be much. There isn't. He turned the display slightly. But there's some. 3 vessels inside the outer boundary. 1 stationary research platform in Heliopause drift. 1 automated miner crawling through the belt. 1 live transponder on a contracted courier vessel, inbound from the Persia transfer. The courier's path line cut directly toward the system. Lena stood again. How long until they query the update? If they haven't already, 11 minutes. Depending on sync lag. She reached for the station comm pad, then stopped. Protocol first. Evidence attached. Proper routing. She put the pad down and instead pulled the civilian override directory. Oren noticed without comment. The station charter doesn't give us unilateral traffic authority, he said. The charter also assumes the map is not speaking in human imperative. He did not answer. She began composing a narrowband caution burst to the courier. Chart revision pending verification. Hold at current vector and await manual clearance. Her fingers hovered above the final send. Too soft. Too administrative. If the pilot was tired or proud, they might ignore it. She deleted the line. Oren watched the Heliopause platform feed refresh on the lower screen. Old station imagery. Solar glare. A damaged dish array still turning with stubborn regularity. No human confirmation signal. No active customs net. He said, if this came from inside Seoul, then something there still has relay access. Lena looked at the wall display. Earth turned in silence. If this came from inside Seoul, she said, then someone waited until now. The kettle clicked off. Neither moved toward it. On the courier track, the projected line shortened by another fraction. The transponder blinked once as the ship updated position. Still inbound. Still committed. Lena took the comm pad again. This time she opened a direct hail, not a routing notice. Outside procedure. Traceable. Personal. She keyed the channel, but did not send yet. On the desk, the printed strip curled slightly at one corner as it cooled. The stylus had rolled a few millimeters and come to rest against it. Oren reached out and aligned both with the edge of the console. Only then did Lena press transmit. The channel opened without sound. Lena watched the waveform line settle into a flat green bar. The system had caught the carrier. No voice yet. No refusal either. Just distance, compression, and the ordinary delay that made every long-range conversation feel slightly out of step with itself. She kept one hand on the comm pad. Courier vessel Astervale. This is cartography station ILEX on civilian relay band 4. Hold your present vector. Your destination map state has changed. Confirm receipt. The message left the station and entered the dark. Oren crossed to the traffic board and reduced the room lights by a notch. Not enough to dim the screens, only enough to cut the reflection in the glass panel behind Lena's chair. He did it with 2 fingers without looking. Then he leaned over the side console and opened the courier's registry shell. The ship was small. Contract hauler. Medical parcels, archival freight, sealed private cases. Crew count. 1 confirmed, 1 optional berth. 3 previous route deviations in 7 years. No sanctions. No military flags. Owner history clean enough to be boring. The reply came back as voice, lightly distorted. Alex, this is Astervale. I read you. What changed? The speaker was low and even. Not old, not young. Lena glanced at Oren. He was already tracing the vessel's telemetry for signs of evasive adjustments. There were none. Lena answered, your chart destination has received an active caution flag from a verified relay key. We are assessing origin. Suspend approach. A pause followed, the kind with thought in it. Then what kind of caution flag? Lena looked at the printout on the desk. She could have translated it into standard language. Temporary system closure. Manual review required. Await instruction. She did not. It says, do not enter. The silence that followed lasted a second too long to be accidental. Oren straightened a fraction. Lena said nothing. The pilot returned, voice unchanged except for a small roughness at the edge, as if they had just cleared their throat. That's the full text. Yes. Authority? Verified legacy access. Origin unresolved. Another pause. Then the pilot asked, is this some kind of Terran archive issue? Lena answered carefully. The phrasing is consistent with old human emergency cartography. The line stayed quiet. On the wall display, the courier's projected path remained fixed on its current course, but the live telemetry panel showed the first reduction in drive output. Small, deliberate, not braking hard, just easing off commitment. Oren tapped the screen once. Lena saw the number change. They're slowing, he said. She nodded without turning from the comm. Astervale, she said, I recommend you hold outside the system boundary until we complete authentication. The pilot did not agree. They did not refuse. I'm carrying sealed cases under time contract. If I hold too long, I breach. What's your delivery class? Private legacy transfer. Lena felt Oren look at her before he looked back to the registry shell. He expanded the freight codes and began digging through the abbreviated lock tags. Most private cargo registered only with legal minimums. Weight. Handling environment. Customs declaration class. Not content. From where? Lena asked. Sidron Freeport. To who? Another pause. Shorter this time. Recipient record says sole inward customs escrow. No individual signatory. Oren found the tag and enlarged it on his screen. One sealed case. Archive grade environmental control. Origin brokered through a legal intermediary 3 layers deep. The contents field was protected, but the outer classification was not. Printed matter. Lena's fingers tightened on the edge of the pad. Astervale, she said, are you aware of the cargo's declared type? Yes. And paper. The task light hummed overhead. Somewhere behind the wall panels, coolant shifted with a soft internal knock. Lena looked at the folded strip on the desk, then at the live marker over Sol. Paper going to Earth. A warning written in old human plain text appearing the same night a courier approached with a sealed case of printed material. Oren was already moving. He crossed to the relay rack, crouched, and reopened the maintenance panel he had left half-fastened earlier. This time he reached deeper into the housing and pulled forward the manual signal bridge used for isolated traffic arbitration. He sat on the floor beside him, plugged in a short cable, then checked the connection twice with his thumb and forefinger. Lena let the silence on the comm stretch just enough to become useful. Finally she asked, what kind of paper? I haven't opened the case. That wasn't my question. The pilot exhaled once through the nose, close enough to the microphone for the station to catch it. Documents. That's all I know. Oren said, without looking up, not all. Lena repeated, not all. The reply came after a few seconds. Found documents. Old format. Manual handling required. Books then. Or records. Try not to call themselves books. Lena rested the comm pad on the desk and switched the channel to continuous record. She sat again, not because she was tired, but because standing had begun to feel like impatience, and impatience made people careless. What route brought you this contract? She asked. Direct hire off the board. No intermediary contact. No face contact. Voice. Yes. Species. I don't know. Oren slid the bridge online. A second traffic lattice appeared on the sidewall, thinner and more detailed than the public shell. Hidden handshakes. Packet ancestry. Obsolete relay etiquette. The warning oversoul re-rendered with its carrier structure exposed beneath it. Lena saw at once why he had wanted the manual bridge. The message was not merely signed with old keys. It was behaving like an old message, using compression habits modern networks no longer taught. Someone had not only used ancient access. They had written in its native grammar. Oren spoke to the air more than to her. This wasn't forged by a historian. Lena muted the comm for a moment. Meaning whoever sent it didn't imitate an old system. They worked inside it. Look at the spacing pattern. She went to him. He pointed to the packet intervals. The way auxiliary authentication rode behind the main string, the placement of dead checksum fields retained for compatibility with machines no one had manufactured in centuries. These are habits, he said, not decoration. She bent lower. He was right. People who counterfeited the old Terran formats usually copied the visible surface. They got the words right, maybe even the authority shell. They rarely understood the inefficiencies, the stubborn redundancies, the way human systems often carried 3 backups for one task because someone once watched a single point of failure kill a colony. This caution flag carried those old redundancies like muscle memory. Lena unmuted the channel. Aster Vale, she said, hold your present reduced burn. Am I being ordered? Yes. The answer came quickly this time. Under what authority? Lena looked at the wall display and chose accuracy over comfort. Under the authority of the station that saw the warning before you did. Oren's mouth moved by 0.5 millimeter. On him, it counted as approval. The pilot did not argue. Telemetry showed another reduction. The projected path shortened again and flattened toward a holding arc outside the sole entry corridor. Lena reached for the kettle at last. The water had cooled enough to pour without steam. She filled 1 small cup from the shelf, then thought better of it and set the cup down untouched beside the printout. The ceramic clicked once against the desk. On the open channel, the pilot said, "You sound like you've seen this kind of thing before." "No," Lena said. "Then why do you sound certain?" She looked at Earth rotating in the inset window. Because uncertainty is exactly when a warning matters. That ended the exchange for the moment. The pilot went quiet but remained on channel. Lena left the line open. People said more when they were not prompted. She moved to the archive station and began pulling every civilian record tied to Seoul over the last 50 years. Tour permits, salvage petitions, research denials, memorial routes, unofficial pilgrimage logs. Most entries were thin. Earth had become less a destination than a concept. Birthplace, ruin, disputed inheritance, symbol. The system still drew people, just not in numbers that mattered to administrations. Oren came up behind her, carrying the folded maintenance panel screws in his left palm. He dropped one into the ceramic bowl on the desk. Metal touched ceramic with a neat, bright note. "How many legitimate entries this quarter?" he asked. 2 registered approaches. Both turned back at customs perimeter. 1 sensor array service contract at the outer platform. Any private legacy deliveries? None through us. He set the screws down in a line, counted them once, then finally fastened the panel closed. Then today is already different. Lena opened the sensor record from the outer research platform, drifting near Heliopause. Most of the feed was routine machine noise. Radiation logs, solar wind readings, maintenance failures deferred for lack of funding. Then, 12 days earlier, a manual annotation appeared in the margin of an automated report. Signal observed. Origin uncertain. Pattern non-random. Repeating every 9 hours, 14 minutes. She read it twice. "Oren." He stepped beside her. She pointed. "Can you pull the raw?" He did. The file was degraded but intact. Not audio, not language. Only interval pulses riding low beneath the solar interference. Not strong enough to raise a system alert. Strong enough for a bored or careful technician to tag. Oren fed the intervals into the relay bridge. The system compared them against known handshakes and returned no exact match. Then he constrained the search to legacy Terran spacing families. This time machine hesitated. The monitor delay line appeared at the bottom of the screen. It crossed once. It vanished. Then it crossed again. Lena felt her hand stop above the keys. Oren did not move at all. The result resolved in pale text. Partial compatibility. Human navigational preamble. Confidence low. Message incomplete. Neither of them spoke. At the far edge of the room, the station clock changed minute with a soft digital tick. Lena became aware of the chair she had left slightly angled from the desk. She went back and straightened it. Then she lifted the untouched cup, took 1 measured sip of cooling water, and set it down exactly where it had been. On the open comm, the pilot said, almost to themselves, "I knew I should have refused this run." Lena turned her head toward the speaker. "Why didn't you?" The answer came after a longer silence than any before it. Because the contract offered triple rate for paper nobody wanted delivered anywhere else. Oren looked at the traffic shell, then at the warning, then at the slow turn of Earth in the inset. Not nobody, he said. Lena understood him immediately. If something in Seoul had reached outward through dead human routing to place a warning over its own system, then something in Seoul had also expected visitors. Not random ones. The right kind. The kind carrying old things by hand. She reopened the cargo declaration and zoomed in on the case dimensions. Not large. Too small for ledgers. Too narrow for equipment. Consistent with journals, personal records, or a small set of bound volumes packed for preservation. The pilot broke the silence first. Ilex. Yes. If I hold here and your warning turns out to be real, what happens next? Lena looked at the printout again. The paper edge had begun to lift where the room's dry air caught it. She pressed it flat with 2 fingers. Next, she said, we find out who asked you to come. The air vent above the relay rack made a sound it didn't usually make. Not louder, just slightly uneven, as if the airflow hesitated for a fraction before continuing. Lena noticed it when she stood still long enough for the rest of the room to settle back into its usual quiet. The hum of the task light. The low tone of the wall display. Oren's steady movement across the floor. The vent sound repeated once, then returned to its normal pattern. She did not look up at it again. Instead, she moved the printed strip a few millimeters to the left so it aligned with the edge of the desk. The cup remained where she had set it. A faint ring of condensation had formed beneath it, barely visible unless you caught it at the right angle. She rotated the cup slightly, so the ring sat evenly within the grain of the surface. Then she sat down. Astervale, she said, I'm going to ask you a series of specific questions. Answer only what you know directly. Understood. Who issued the contract? Broker tag. L3 exchange. Indirect. Payment source. Escrow. Preloaded. Voice contact. Did they use a name? No. Did they ask you anything beyond delivery? No. Did they specify a time window? Yes. How narrow? Arrival within a 2-day window. Penalty outside that. Lena glanced at Oren. He had returned to the relay bridge and was feeding the partial signal pattern into a narrower filter. He adjusted one parameter, paused, then reversed the change by a single increment. The system recalculated. He watched without blinking. Lena continued. Did the contact mention the caution flag? No. Did they mention soul as restricted? No. Did they mention humans? A slight delay. Yes. What exactly? They said, you'll understand when you get closer. Lena's hand rested flat on the desk. She kept it there. Did that make sense to you? No. Why take the contract? Because the terms didn't require it to make sense. Oren spoke without turning. Ask about the packaging. Lena nodded once. Describe the case. Composite shell. Old design. Manual seals. Manual? Yes. No biometric locks? No. No digital handshake? No. Tamper indicators? Yes. Active? Yes. Lena considered that. Manual seals meant trust, or the expectation of trust. It also meant the sender either didn't want the content scanned or but didn't care if they were. Either possibility carried weight. Do you have visual access to the case? Yes. Describe the surface. Dark. Matte. No markings except one. What marking? The pilot hesitated. Lena did not fill the silence. It's a symbol, the pilot said. Simple. 3 lines. 2 parallel. 1 crossing them. Oren's hand stopped over the relay controls. Lena turned her head slightly, just enough to see him in the corner of her eye. He was still, but not frozen. Just thinking. Orientation. Lena asked. Parallel lines vertical. Cross line horizontal. Center. Yes. Size. Small. Palm width. Lena looked at the wall display, then at the archive station, then back to the compad. Send us an image, she said. Case integrity protocol. Send us an image. A pause. Then stand by. The channel shifted as the pilot redirected a local feed. The image arrived a moment later, slightly grainy, angled from above. The case sat secured against a bulkhead. held in place by two tension straps. The surface was as described, dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. And at the center, the marking, three lines, two vertical, one horizontal crossing them near the middle. Lena did not recognize it immediately. Oren did. He stepped closer to the screen, not touching it. His eyes moved once across the symbol, then back again, slower. "Where have you seen that?" Lena asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached past her and pulled up a secondary archive, one not indexed in the standard station library. It took a moment to load. When it did, the interface looked older, less refined, the kind of system built for function, not presentation. He searched once, stopped, adjusted the query. Then a set of results appeared. Most were corrupted, partial images, fragments of text. Old human records rarely survived intact in shared archives. Too many systems had overwritten them. Too many formats had become unreadable. But one entry opened cleanly. A scan of a physical page. The same symbol sat at the top, printed in black ink, slightly uneven as if the press had not been perfectly aligned. Below it, text, not translated, original human language. Lena leaned closer. "Can you read it?" she asked. Oren shook his head once. Not fluently. He adjusted the display, isolating the symbol. "This wasn't a general marker," he said. "It was specific." "To what?" He hesitated, then said, "To restricted records." Lena looked at the image from the courier again. "You're certain?" "No," he said, "but it fits." She considered the case, the paper inside, the manual seals, the symbol. Then she looked at the caution flag over Sol. "Do not enter." Aster Vale, she said, "Confirm. The symbol is the only marking on the case." "Yes." "No text." "No." "No serials?" "No." "Nothing else." "Nothing." Lena muted the channel again. Oren closed the archive window, but left the symbol isolated on a smaller panel. "Restricted records," she said, "or something meant to look like them. Why send that to Sol?" He didn't answer. Because the answer, whatever it was, would shape everything that followed. Lena stood and walked to the wall display. She zoomed out, pulling back from the Sol system until the surrounding sectors came into view. Trade routes, drift zones, survey gaps. Then she overlaid the relay path of the caution flag. 3 jumps upstream. She traced them with her finger. "Here," she said. Oren joined her. The path began in a region marked as inactive. No current stations. No active relays. Just a scattering of old nodes, most of them long dead. "Can you confirm if any of those nodes are still transmitting?" she asked. He brought up the diagnostics. One by one, the nodes returned their status. Inactive, inactive, inactive. Then, one returned a signal. Weak, intermittent, but present. Lena watched the indicator flicker. "That shouldn't be online," she said. "It isn't," Owen replied. "Not officially." He opened the node's record. Designation, Relay 7A Delta. Status, decommissioned. Last confirmed activity, 143 years ago. "Pull live feed," Lena said. Oren did. The data came in slowly, unevenly, as if the connection itself was struggling to remember how to function. Static dominated the first few seconds. Then shapes began to form, signal patterns, not images. Raw transmission data. Oren routed it through the relay bridge. The system processed, paused, processed again. The monitor delay line appeared. It crossed once, vanished, then crossed again. Lena felt her fingers tighten against the edge of the console. The result resolved. Signal structure, human navigational format. Message status, active. Content, partial. Oren leaned closer. "Play it," Lena said. He did. The sound that came through the speakers was not a voice. Not exactly. It was a sequence of tones. Low, spaced, deliberate. Not random. Not noise. Lena listened. The pattern repeated. Again and again. Her mind began to map the intervals without asking permission. Oren adjusted the output, converting the tones into visual markers on the screen. Lines, gaps, repetitions. He overlaid them against the earlier signal from the Heliopause platform. They matched. Not perfectly, but closely enough. "This is the same source," Lena said. Yes. And it's still transmitting. Yes. They stood in silence for a moment. The tones continued. Steady. Unhurried. As if whatever was sending them had no reason to rush. On the desk, the printed strip lifted again at the corner. The air vent above the relay rack made its uneven sound once more, then settled. Lena turned back to the compad. Astervale, she said, unmuting the channel. Your destination system is now linked to an active transmission from a decommissioned relay node. What does that mean? It means the warning didn't come from nowhere. A pause. Then, are you telling me something in Seoul is still talking? Lena looked at the wall display, at the slow rotation of Earth, at the caution flag that sat over it like a closed door. Yes, she said. Another silence. Longer this time. Then the pilot asked, And you still want me to hold position? Lena did not answer immediately. She looked at Oren. He met her gaze, then glanced once at the symbol on the screen, then at the relay data, then back to her. No words. Just a decision waiting to be made. Lena turned back to the comm. Yes, she said. The cable between the relay bridge and the rack shifted a few millimeters, then stopped. Lena noticed it because it had been straight before. A clean line from port to port. Now it held a slight curve near the midpoint, as if tension had changed somewhere out of view. Not enough to disconnect. Not enough to trigger a fault. Just enough to exist. She reached down and pressed it lightly with 2 fingers. The curve resisted, then returned when she let go. She left it as it was. On the wall display, the signal from Relay 7A Delta continued its steady pattern. Tones repeating at measured intervals. The visual markers drifted across the screen in quiet procession. Nothing urgent. Nothing that asked for attention, which was, Lena realized, the only reason it held her focus. Astervale, she said, confirm your current distance from Seoul boundary. 2 hours at reduced burn, the pilot replied. 3 if I slow further. Maintain current reduction. You've said that. I'm saying it again. The pilot did not respond immediately. Oren adjusted the relay bridge output, isolating one segment of the transmission and stretching it across a longer time axis. The pattern became clearer when expanded. Not more complex, just more deliberate. He said, It's not just repeating. Lena stepped closer. Show me. He marked one sequence in blue, another in white. The spacing between them shifted slightly on each cycle. Not random drift. Controlled variation. It's changing, she said. Yes. Toward what? He didn't answer. Instead, he opened a secondary analysis window and began mapping the variations against known human encoding systems. Old ones. The kind used before universal translation frameworks made most of them obsolete. The system processed, paused, then returned a low-confidence match. Lena read it once. Then again. Directional, she said. Oren nodded. Not language. Not exactly. More like positioning. She watched the pattern advance. If it's positioning, she said, what is it pointing to? Oren shifted the overlay onto the Sol system map. The markers aligned. Not perfectly. The signal was too degraded for precision. But the general direction was clear. It pointed inward. Not to the outer platform. Not to the belt. Not to any known installation. Toward Earth. Lena exhaled once, slowly. On the desk, the cup had left a second faint ring beside the first. She moved it a fraction to avoid overlapping them. Then she turned back to the comm. Astervale, she said, your cargo, does it require delivery to a specific coordinate within Seoul? No. Just inward customs escrow. Yes. No surface designation. No. No orbital handoff. No. Lena pressed her fingers lightly against the desk. Then the delivery point may not be in your contract, she said. The pilot's voice tightened by a degree. That's not how contracts work. No, Lena said. It isn't. Silence followed. Oren stepped back from the relay bridge and moved to the traffic shell. He expanded the courier's trajectory, then overlaid the signal vector. The lines intersected. Not exactly, but close enough to matter. He tapped the screen once. They're already aligned, he said. Lena looked at it. The courier's approach path, if left unchanged, would bring it within proximity of the signal's projected origin. Not by design, by coincidence, or something that looked like coincidence from the outside. She turned back to the comm. Astervale, she said. Adjust your vector 5 degrees starboard. A pause. That will increase my approach time. Yes. Why? Because your current path intersects with an unverified signal source. Another pause. Then, you think it's trying to guide me. Lena did not answer. The pilot said, or trap me. Adjust your vector. A longer silence. Telemetry held steady. Then, a small shift. The projected path bent. Not sharply, just enough. Oren watched the numbers update. They're complying. Lena nodded once. Maintain that adjustment, she said into the comm. Ilex, the pilot said, if this turns out to be nothing. It won't, Lena said. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't add emphasis. Just said it. The channel went quiet again. Lena stepped away from the console and walked to the archive station. She pulled up the old human record Oren had found earlier, the one with the symbol. She studied it more carefully this time. The page was worn, edges softened by handling, the ink uneven in places, as if applied by a machine that had required constant adjustment. Below the symbol, the text remained untranslated. She traced the shape of the letters with her eyes. Not reading, just observing. Oren joined her after a moment. You recognize any of it? She asked. No. But the structure? Yes. What kind of document was it? He hesitated, then said, Access restriction notice. For what? For records that weren't meant to be opened casually. Lena looked back at the image from the courier. The case. The symbol. Manual seals. Paper inside. She said, what if the cargo isn't meant to be delivered? Oren didn't answer, because the question wasn't complete yet. She finished it herself. What if it's meant to be returned? The relay signal continued its steady pattern. On the wall display, the vector markers shifted again. Slightly. Always inward. Lena walked back to the desk. She picked up the printed strip and folded it once, carefully this time, aligning the edges before pressing the crease flat. Then she set it down beside the stylus. The stylus rolled a fraction, stopped against the fold. She didn't move it. Astervale, she said, opening the channel again. I need you to confirm something. Go ahead. When you accepted the contract, did the terms specify who would receive the cargo? No. Did they specify how the cargo would be received? No. Did they specify what would happen if no recipient was present? A pause. Then no. Lena nodded once, though the pilot couldn't see it. Then your contract is incomplete, she said. That's not. It is. Silence. Oren watched the traffic shell, then the relay data, then the archive image. 3 points. One idea. He said quietly, it's not a delivery. Lena looked at him. No, she said. It isn't. On the comm, the pilot asked, then what is it? Lena didn't answer immediately. She looked at the wall display. At Earth. At the caution flag. At the signal vector. Then she said, it's a response. The word settled into the room. Not heavy, just present. Oren returned to the relay bridge. He adjusted the signal filter again, this time narrowing the bandwidth to isolate only the strongest components. The pattern sharpened. The variations became clearer. Not random. Not drifting. Deliberate. Lena watched as he overlaid the pattern onto the archive symbol. For a moment, nothing aligned. Then, one segment matched. A crossing point. 2 lines. One intersecting. The same geometry. Not identical, but related. Oren leaned closer. It's referencing the symbol, he said. Or the symbol is referencing it, Lena replied. They stood there, looking at the overlap. On the comm, the pilot said, Ilex. Yes. If this is a response, what was the original message? Lena looked at the folded strip on the desk. At the words printed on it. Do not enter. She said, we don't know. A pause. Then the pilot asked, do you want me to keep holding? Lena didn't answer right away. She walked back to the desk, adjusted the cup so it sat centered between the 2 faint rings, straightened the stylus, smoothed the folded paper. Then she picked up the comm pad. Yes, she said. The relay signal continued. The cable near the rack held its slight curve. The air vent remained quiet. And on the wall display, the line marking the courier's new path held steady, just off the original vector, no longer aligned with the signal. The shadow from the task light shifted a few millimeters across the desk, then stopped. Lena noticed it because it didn't match the position of the light itself. The fixture hadn't moved, The angle hadn't changed, but the edge of the shadow had slid just enough to misalign with the grain of the surface beneath it. She held her hand above the desk. The shadow followed. She lowered it again. The edge returned to where it had been. Not the light, then. The reflection, or something between. She didn't look up. Instead, she reached for the folded printout and adjusted it so the shadow line no longer crossed the text. The crease held. The paper stayed flat this time. Behind her, Oren's movement slowed. He had been working steadily at the relay bridge, isolating smaller and smaller segments of the transmission, feeding them through filters, comparing them to fragments of archived human systems. Now he stopped. Not fully, just enough that the pattern of his work broke. "What is it?" Lena asked. He didn't answer right away. He replayed one segment of the signal, then another, then a third, all slightly different, all nearly the same. Finally, he said, "It's not guiding." Lena turned. "It looks like it is," she said. "Yes," he replied, "but it isn't." He expanded the pattern across the full display. The variations stretched out, no longer compressed into a repeating loop. The changes became clearer, not directional, not pointing toward a location. They were adjustments. Small, precise, incremental. "Show me," Lena said. He overlaid the pattern onto a blank grid. Then he began marking each variation as a position shift. Left, right, up, down. Not in space. On the grid. Lena stepped closer. "It's mapping something," she said. "Yes." "What?" Oren didn't answer. He adjusted the scale. The grid expanded. The pattern filled it. Not randomly. Not evenly. Clusters. Gaps. Repetition in certain regions. Absence in others. Lena felt her attention narrow. "Stop," she said. He froze the display. She stepped closer. Looked at the pattern. Not as movement. As structure. Then she said, "Rotate it." Oren did. 90 degrees. Nothing. Another 90. Still nothing. He rotated again. On the third orientation, the pattern shifted into something almost recognizable. Not clear. Not complete. "But," Lena said, "zoom." He did. The clusters sharpened. Lines began to form. Not straight. Not clean. But connected. She leaned in. And then she saw it. Not a map. Not a coordinate. A shape. Irregular. Broken in places. But continuous. She stepped back. "It's a surface," she said. Oren looked at her. "Yes." She turned to the wall display. To Earth. The cloud cover. The continents beneath. She said nothing. But the connection had already formed. Oren overlaid the pattern onto a planetary projection. Scaled it. Adjusted for distortion. Aligned the edges. For a moment, nothing matched. Then, a coastline appeared. Faint. Incomplete. But there. Lena felt her hand press lightly against the console. "It's Earth," she said. "Yes." Not a full map. Not accurate. But close enough. The signal wasn't pointing toward Earth. It was reconstructing it. Piece by piece. From memory. Or from observation. Or from something else entirely. Lena looked at the relay node designation again. 7A Delta. Decommissioned. Inactive. Until now. She turned back to the comm. "Astor Vale," she said. The pilot responded immediately. "I'm here. We need you to confirm something. Go ahead. Does your cargo manifest include any environmental requirements?" "Yes." "What kind?" "Temperature controlled. Low humidity. Minimal vibration. Anything else?" A pause. Then, light exposure limited. Lena closed her eyes for a fraction of a second. Then opened them again. "Describe the case interior." "I can't open it." "Without breaking seal?" "Yes." "Then don't." She muted the channel. Oren was already moving. He pulled up the cargo dimensions again, this time overlaying them against standard human archival containers. Most didn't match. One did. Barely. He enlarged it. Old Terran preservation case. Designed for fragile documents. Manual handling. No digital interface. No scanning ports. Lena said, "It's not just paper." "No." Oren agreed. "It's specific paper." He nodded. They both looked at the reconstructed pattern on the screen. At the incomplete image of Earth. At the missing sections. Large gaps. Entire regions absent. "Those gaps," Lena said. "They're not random." "No." "They're missing data." "Yes." She turned back to the comm. "Astor Vale, she said, unmuting. I need you to answer carefully. Understood. When you accepted the cargo, did you scan it? No. Did anyone else? Not that I know of. Did the contract specify that it must not be scanned? A pause. Then, yes. Lena nodded once. Then it's not just preserved, she said. It's protected. The pilot didn't respond. Lena continued. And the only way to access it is manually. Yes. She muted the channel again. Oren said, it's filling the gaps. Yes. With what? She looked at the incomplete map, at the missing sections, then at the symbol. 3 lines, 2 parallel, 1 crossing, a marker, a restriction, a boundary. She said, records. Oren didn't move. She continued. The signal is reconstructing Earth from available data, but it's incomplete, and the cargo contains what's missing. They stood in silence. The idea settled. Not dramatic, just clear. Oren said, then the warning isn't about entry, Lena finished. It's about interference. He nodded. If the cargo reached its destination, if the missing data was added, the reconstruction would complete. Whatever that meant, whatever it would do. Lena turned back to the comm. Aster Vale, she said. I'm here. You need to hold position. I am. You need to keep holding. For how long? She didn't answer immediately. She looked at the wall display, at the signal, at the pattern, at the incomplete Earth. Then she said, until we decide whether your cargo should ever arrive. Silence. Then the pilot said, that's not your call. No, Lena said. It isn't. She paused, then added, but you're still holding. The channel went quiet again. Oren returned to the relay bridge. He adjusted the filter once more, narrowing it further, isolating only the strongest segments. The pattern shifted, not dramatically, just enough. Lena watched. Something new appeared. A small cluster, separate from the main structure. Offset. She stepped closer. What is that? She asked. Oren zoomed in. The cluster resolved into a tighter formation. More precise, less degraded. He overlaid it onto the map. It didn't match any landmass. Didn't align with any known structure. Lena said, it's not Earth. No. Then what? Oren didn't answer. He adjusted the scale. The cluster expanded. The pattern sharpened. And then, Lena saw it. Not a continent. Not a region. A point. A location. Specific. Fixed. She turned slowly toward the wall display. Toward the rotating Earth. Toward the place where the pattern pointed. The marker settled. A single point on the surface. No label. No designation. Just a location. Lena said nothing. Oren didn't either. On the desk, the shadow edge remained perfectly aligned. The cup sat centered between its 2 faint rings. Then she said, I'm asking you to decide what your contract actually is. The channel went quiet. Oren returned to the relay bridge. He made one final adjustment. Not to the signal. To the output. He removed the overlays. The comparisons. The interpretations. What remained was the raw transmission. The tones. The intervals. The repetition. Without context. Without meaning. Just the signal. Lena listened. It didn't sound urgent. It didn't sound like a warning. It didn't sound like anything that demanded action. It simply existed. Steady. Unchanged. As if it had been waiting. For something. Or someone. Aster Vale. The pilot said finally. What happens if I ignore both of you and continue as planned? Lena considered the question. She didn't rush the answer. She didn't soften it either. You arrive, she said. You deliver the cargo. The reconstruction completes. And then, we don't know. And if I follow your alternate path, you don't deliver. The signal continues. The system remains as it is. And if I turn back, Lena looked at the wall display, at the point, at the incomplete map, at the warning. Then she said, nothing changes. The pilot exhaled slowly. So those are my options. Yes. No one spoke after that. Not immediately. The station returned to its quiet rhythm. The vent remained steady. The cable held its slight curve. The console light stayed constant. Oren stepped back from the relay bridge and removed his hand from the housing. He wiped his fingers once against his sleeve, then rested them lightly on the edge of the console. Lena moved the folded paper a final time, aligning it perfectly with the desk edge. The stylus remained where it had stopped. The cup remained centered, everything in its place. On the wall display, the courier's path updated. A small shift, then another. The projected line bent. Not toward Seoul, not away, toward the alternate path. Oren watched the numbers change. Lena didn't move. The adjustment continued. Slow, deliberate, until the new trajectory held. The pilot spoke, voice steady. I'm holding. Lena nodded once. Confirmed. The channel stayed open. No further words. The signal continued. The pattern remained incomplete. The point stayed fixed. Nothing resolved. Nothing escalated. The system held. After a while, Oren reached out and turned off the relay bridge output. The tone stopped. The room fell into a quieter silence. The map remained. The warning remained. The point remained. Lena picked up the cup, took one last sip of the cooled water, and set it down exactly where it had been. Neither of them looked at the display again. The station returned to waiting.